I think really the answer is everything is always a work in progress. You're never really done. As Thomas Sowell says, right? There's no right and wrong. There's only trade-offs, and so it's never finished. The journey of life is never over. The journey. The destination is the journey, right? I mean, that's where you want to be. You want to be on that path. So it gets easier to answer that question as you go.
Welcome back to the Intelligent Conversations podcast. Today, I have the honor to learn from Nick Barrett. Nick has been a previous guest on the show and is just so fun to talk with. He is an entrepreneur and the founder of Cordbrick, which is a little device that can hold your cords, organize them for you, and it is just so intuitively designed. I actually have one, and I use it quite often, not just to organize my cords, but for other tasks as well. And I don't want to spoil any of the rest of the show. Nick kind of shares some of the progress he's made and some of the new things that he is doing with Cordbrick. So without further ado, let's welcome Nick Barrett to the show. Awesome.
How are you? How you been?
I've been good. How about yourself? I mean, you've been busy, I guess, to say the least, right?
Yeah, some good things have been happening. Absolutely. I mean, it's, we're growing, I kind of knew that this was possible, but it's great to see it happening in action.
Yeah, I still use that Cordbrick you gave me. I've used it for, holding wires as well, but I actually have used it for other things too, because it's actually, I was surprised how sturdy it is, right? And how much weight there was to it.
Yeah.
So I've used it as like to hold stuff as well. Just like when I need it to not move.
Yep. Dude, I use it to like balance my phone when it's on an arm. I use it to like prop my phone up. I'll just sit it literally on top of paper as a paperweight. I'll put pens and other things like in the different channels, and because it can like grab different stuff. I mean, and just like for moving it around, like moving, it seems so dumb. Like, okay, you're picking up, something that you draw on, and you got a bunch of, pen, a pencil, and like a couple of things, and it might fall off. So it's just like bang, bang, just pop them in there and then toss that on your thing and just like walk around, like whatever. I don't know. It's like just a little weighted brick, man. Yeah. It's so simple.
Now that you mention it, like the pen and I actually did do that too. Like, so I'll be writing on a piece of paper, right? Like for whatever reason, maybe like I'm on a slanted surface or whatever, or, unstable surface. Mm-hmm. So I'll put it at the top with, pens sticking out of it, and just grab a pen, start writing away. And it's really, really convenient and has a lot of uses as well. And now you have one for desks, right? That came out.
So yeah, now we got the one for the Deskbrick. And then, so the Deskbrick is a little bit different given that the channels on the ends, they kind of go perpendicular to the way that they're running on Cordbrick. Mm-hmm. On Cordbrick, all the channels run parallel. And so then you've got two different directions of channels on the Deskbrick. So it's got about 2.5 times the weight. And then I call these corner pockets. And so 4 corner pockets, 7 top and bottom, or 7 top channels, and then a little cord gap underneath. So you should be able to pin down like your watch and other magnetic type chargers. So it's, a similar product. It's just kind of like a big brother of the original product. It holds a little more cords, a little more weight. But you're right, with Cordbrick, I mean, it's kind of like you got the versatility of a travel tool. And then with Deskbrick, it could still travel, but they're just different solutions for different folks. And I'm getting great reviews on the Deskbrick right now. I think it's 4.8 on Amazon. And we just started. So
that's amazing.
Going really well.
I mean, that was kind of my first thought when I saw the Deskbrick on your site. Was it's used for like all those cords that are, in your setup, your laptop setup or whatever it may be, from wherever you're working. It's really nice to keep those organized and then hold other stuff as well, right? Speaking of like pens and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, I actually have people use the Deskbrick by their nightstand, which is, I usually use the Cordbrick by my nightstand, but some people use it because of the little corner pockets and standing your phone. They like it by their nightstand. They like something a little heavier, and maybe they like to yank on their cord a little more, so it might be liable to pull the Cordbrick, off or something like that. So yeah, different strokes for different folks.
Everyone has their taste. Dude, that's so cool. And now you're in I don't want to like spoil anything, but are you in Lowe's now?
Yeah, so we did just get officially in Q3. We got word from them that we'll be going in a certain number of their stores. I'm not exactly sure how many yet, but it should be quite a few of their U.S. stores. And then we'll have this little. It's a quarter pallet size display, so it's just you probably, if you go into Lowe's or Home Depot, you see these like independently standing cardboard big displays with a single product on there. So there'll be cord bricks on one of them in some Lowe's locations. So we'll see where and see how they sell. So I'm excited.
So what's the story behind that? Like, just at a conference and you stumbled, like Lowe's reaches out to you, or was it kind of the other way around?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think we last spoke last fall, and so a lot of things happened for Cordbrick and me last fall. For instance, we got Cordbrick on the Today Show, so that was great as a stocking stuffer.
That's awesome.
Yeah, sometimes those are pay for play events, but no, they actually just put it on because they thought their viewers would want to see it as a stocking stuffer. So I didn't even have to pay for that opportunity. It was great to get so much exposure, and we had by far our record sales day, and they had 4 other products on there, and they only talked about Cordbrick for a minute, but they did a fantastic job, and stuck to the main uses and main problems that people are experiencing and why they buy it. And then we had some other press and news type appearances. They call it earned media. A tech podcaster named Rich on Tech from LA. He has a segment on the news channel and KTLA, NBC's LA affiliate. He did a whole segment on it and a bunch of other gadgets too, but he highlighted Cordbrick and the utility of it. So that was really neat. We had a great day for that as well. And then Lowe's. Yeah. So Lowe's happened through a submission that I did through this platform called Range Me, which is an online trade show platform. Basically, I mean, instead of going to a trade show, you just put up your permanent page, your social media profile,
That's
if you
so
will,
smart.
for your business. Yeah, and your products, and then you just upload certain information about the product and your certifications, your packaging, your UPC information, all your what categories it's in, and then you get connected with the buyers, who is in this case the retailer. And, it's an easy way for them to learn about new products without having to actually meet you and walk around at a trade show.
That seems way better than a trade show. I mean, that's just my opinion, but
yeah. I mean, for me, there's definitely a lot of benefits of going to a trade show. As you stated, at the beginning of this chat here, when you touch or you pick up Cordbrick, one thing I do is I always hand people one when they're in person. They're passing me by. I show them a little trick with it, unwrapping the cord, and then I put it in their hand. And if they accept it, if they'll hold on to it, they always say the same thing. Oh, that's heavier than I would have expected. And so there is sort of this, like, when something is weighted, it has like a premium feel to it, and people just give it a little more value, with that extra weight, I think, in their own minds. And so that's why I always put it in people's hands. So it's also a very demonstratable product, and you can't really demonstrate this stuff as well on video. I don't think you get people's attention as well on a website as you do in person at a trade show type environment. So yeah, it's nice for the vendors to not, or for the retailers to not have to go and meet all the vendors and suppliers in person, but it is beneficial to kind of touch and see and feel. We don't live in a perfect virtual reality universe just yet.
Yeah.
So
are you thinking of doing that then? Virtual reality?
Oh yeah. I mean, heck yeah. If put on your haptic suit and feel the weight of Cordbrick and the flexiness and the squish, if that's possible, I think it'll be, it'll sell much better in that type of environment. I think we're a little ways from, most people having access to something like that, but it's certainly fun to talk about.
Oh, it is. No, VR is, fascinating just to begin with. So I guess what's kind of the goal here? I mean, now you're working on Deskbrick and you're getting that out there. Like, where do you kind of see this going, like, and evolving into? Because if I've learned anything, it kind of goes where you never expect, right? And you've even said that at the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to have a vision as a founder, right? You've got to have some kind of idea of where it might go. I think it's easier in certain businesses than others. I mean, the product sector of businesses, types of businesses, it lends itself to being a little more easy to predict than maybe a software as a service type business or media type business. So, where that's going to go in the future. So it's harder you kind of have to adapt differently as the playing field changes a little quicker in technology than it does for physical products. So my plan is to launch other, weighted items for brick brands, for as we may call it. The brick being the main word that we build
Mm-hmm.
off of for other products, because we've got Cordbrick and Deskbrick right now. Who knows what other types of bricks we could create that would be useful products for the consumer. So I think it's just kind of a process of evaluating what are the next ones that make sense and where is the need and where are products inferior and where do we fit in. So I think now there's sort of a better definition of where that's going to go than there was maybe 2 years ago or even a year ago with just the one product, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's brilliant marketing, right, on your part as well. Like, to keep the brick. It reminded me like of iPhone, right? They just stick with that. Yeah, add a letter or whatever new model it is, or they do a really good job with branding, and I think you're doing that as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel really good about the brand. I mean, just to stop on that point for a second. I mean, I do feel whether it's luck or whatever, or skill, a combination of both. I'm not really sure yet. This is my first brand I've launched, so I definitely it's the only one I have to compare to. But I've been told by a lot of people that it does seem like we have a strong brand, and our branding all around, from the logo to the look of the product to the packaging to our marketing to our website, everything, our instructions that come with the product. It all kind of seems to make sense to consumers. So again, I don't know if that's luck or if that's just like some skill in doing that, or probably a combination. But it is really fortunate kind of how this has worked out. And, when I tell people about using the brick as the root for future products, they're like, oh yeah, makes total sense. So, yeah, we're really fortunate that we're in that situation right now.
It's so cool what you're doing. And I mean, just to touch on that too, the design, that's something that I think is actually, I mean, I tend to be biased this way. I think the design is almost sometimes more important than the product itself. Sometimes, right? Obviously it has to function, right? How it intends, or people just don't want to use it. But I think the design sometimes is almost more important because it appeals to them, and kind of what you said, the weight, right? It's like, oh, like this is new. Like this is something I've never done before. I think the design sometimes is overlooked when it comes to designing a product or building it. We get so focused on just the functionality, and it's like, no, I think the design sometimes is so important. I don't know if you agree with that, but
100%. I tinker on designs for a long time, and I try to think like, does this fit, right? Does it make sense in the consumer's mind? Yeah, it's a tricky a topic of discussion to figure out, like, what is that mix for the consumer that makes sense when you're designing a product? Yeah, it's like, do you get lucky sometimes, or do you design and make a product to fit something that makes sense in the minds of the consumer? It is a combination. It is an art. I think a lot of designers
mm-hmm.
are, I mean, designers, not all of them, but most of them are really artists. And you do find designers that are very process based, and they really like to stick to the rules, but a lot of designers like to kind of push the rules and be creative with it. So I think it's just part of the process of how am I going to communicate this message that's in my head to someone else, right? In terms of a solution. And, it's interesting. Like, I wonder in my mind when I thought like, Cordbrick and the brick, like, did I think like it has to be the brick shape? I think I remember thinking, yeah, it does. Like, it has to be a brick shape. If we're going to call it Cordbrick, like it's going to be the shape of a brick. So, um, I know I wouldn't deviate from that now.
And this reminds me, because I'll just share with you. I've been working on, so I do this, and then I also have a window cleaning company, and I had the idea one day, I'm like, I should build a window cleaning drone. And that process, bro, just a lot of learning, that's for sure. But what I found is I tend to lean more towards the design sometimes than the functionality. I'm like, oh, it needs to look exactly like this. And sometimes, right, I mean, you can't defy physics. It's like, dang it, can't do that, right? And it's tough. So like you said, it's like an art. It's like, okay, that doesn't work. Let's try this. And you have this vision. It's constantly like just being molded. And it's kind of fun, I have to say, to see it all of a sudden come to slowly be pieced together. And you're like, okay, we're getting there. We're getting there closer. So this is my question. At what point would you say like you'd be satisfied with the final product, like the design? Because I'm sure you're similar where it's like, maybe I just add this touch or just tweak it a little here, right? At what point you're like, okay, I'm satisfied. Let's move forward.
That is a very hard question to answer. The answer is it depends. I know exactly what you're talking about, of course. I think any creative person, I think really the answer is everything is always a work in progress. You're never really done. As Thomas Sowell says, right, there's no right and wrong. There's only trade-offs. And so it's never finished. The journey of life is never over. The journey, the destination is the journey, right? I mean, that's where you want to be. You want to be on that path. So yeah, I think it gets easier to answer that question as you go. And I think, that's why I always tell entrepreneurs, because I speak to some students at entrepreneurship schools at some local colleges, and I just for fun, I enjoy it. I've got some interns out of it, but really it's just fun to see that that young, youthful, creative mind that I remember myself having of like what's possible in the world, and then talking to someone who's went and created something like that. So I think it's like you figure it out as you start doing stuff, how perfect you need to be. I think that most entrepreneurs are perfectionists by nature, right? They see a problem and they want to fix it. So they saw the problem because they saw something was wrong with it because, they're perfectionists or they like something done a certain way or like something, for me, it's the order of the chords and, just having that at my convenience when I'm in bed or wherever I charge and not experience what I think is a stupid problem, which is the cord falling behind a surface or, having to move a piece of furniture or what have you. So, yeah, I mean, with podcasting or with branding or with anything, it's like, how much better do I need to get? I think you just kind of keep doing it and you figure out based on what people's responses are. And that's why you can't be afraid to ask people stuff. So that's what I don't know if I did, but meant to say with talking to students, I always tell them, don't be afraid to tell people your idea because you want people to, critically, give you that constructive feedback so that you can make it better. So you need to, so you then can figure out next time, how far do I need to go to design this, to perfect it until I can present it to people. So, you're not going to know unless you got a lot of data on what people will accept and what's good enough.
Exactly. Start with the customer. Right. Start with the person who's eventually going to buy it. Right?
Yeah. I mean, the first question you need to ask whenever you're designing a product is, who's going to buy this? Right. What will they pay for it? Right. Who am I selling to? And that could be if you're making a product or you're, doing a podcast, right? Who's the customer? What's the problem I'm solving for them? And then what are they going to pay for it? And then how do I scale or get out of this business? What's my exit strategy? So problem, exit.
I haven't heard that second. So, I've heard the problem, but exit strategy.
Yeah, that's your goal. Yeah, because you need to aim towards something. Whenever you're doing a sport or whenever you're learning any new skill or something like that, you have an end goal in mind, right? It's not, I mean, it can be a little fuzzy, but you kind of know, okay, if I improve at this, I will be able to do this. This is what this will look like, right? So your exit strategy is your goal. It's your end goal for your startup. And that is an absolutely essential second step after your first step. And it's the second, question you need to answer before you do anything at your startup is, how am I going to get out of this business, right? How does this end with me being expendable and being able to leave and get my payday, or, make it so other people can basically, do this for me and I don't have to do anything, because the limiting factor is your time and anything that you do. So it's like, if you have to be the person that does all the work, how are you ever gonna, make more money or scale or get your product to everybody? I mean, if I want to get this product to millions and millions of people, I can't be the one that makes everyone, right? I've got to get a supplier to create these for me, and then I've got to go do the selling of these. If I was just focused on the making all the time, I wouldn't be able to do the selling and get them out there. And then, when I figure out, okay, I want to be acquired, I want this brand to be purchased by someone else, I then know what I have to do to start going that direction, or I can then at least start developing my strategy of, okay, if this is my end goal, what are the steps that I need or other people think I need to get there? Because if you want to exit as a public company, it's different than if you want to exit as a brand acquisition. If you want to go with a licensing deal, that's different. If you want to stay private and run the business yourself, that is totally different as well. How soon do you want to do this, right? If you want to exit within 3 years, your day-to-day strategy is going to be totally different than if you want to exit in 10, right? You're not going to do the same stuff every day. So that's an exit strategy, and your aim is very important, is what you're aiming at.
Well, thank you. No, thank you for sharing that. That helps. Cause I mean, I have right. I think every entrepreneur has okay, this is kind of my end goal in mind, but then putting it down, even just to paper, right? And realizing that, okay, if, like you said, your goal is to sell the business or, keep it private or go public, whatever it may be, the path to get there is different for everyone. And you have to find people that are going to help you get there. So I'm just curious, what's kind of, you don't have to share, but what's your exit strategy? What are you thinking?
Yeah. So mine's brand acquisition, right? I want to sell to another company that makes acquisitions in the mobile devices or electronic devices space, right? Because a company that already sells products that are mobile accessories or phone accessories is going to have a much bigger distribution network than me. They probably have a bigger manufacturing network because they've been probably manufacturing a bunch of their own other products. So I could do it that way, or I could then start adding more products to my line and manufacturing those as well, right? And then build my own distribution network up. I've chosen not to do it that way. That takes a little bit longer, takes a little bit more money. So my strategy is brand acquisition. So I wanted to build the brand that a company who acquires companies like mine would want to buy. And that's why the brand was so important to me with Cordbrick.
That's just what they look for, right?
I mean, they look for a lot of different things based on what your industry is and what's valuable to companies in that industry, right? So what a company is going to look for when they buy me is my customer database, because if they already sell similar products, then the customers that I've sold to may also buy their products as well. So it's valuable for them to acquire those customers, from my email list and things like that, people who bought through, our website. So that will make my company valuable to this type of company. Yeah.
Gotcha. That's cool though. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's, just what you've done with Cordbrick since the last time I've talked with you is just incredible. Cause I think the last time I talked to you, you just finished filing the patent and we're just starting out. And I think you just won an award at an event, a trade show.
National Retail Federation, we won coolest product last year. So we were touting that all last year. We won $10,000. So that was pretty big for us. And yeah, you're right. We had just gotten the patent and we had just redesigned the product and improved it. And we had got, figured out how to make it for for less, and then deliver to our customers for a better price, so that we can stay in business. So, yeah.
So I'm curious, has anyone tried to like infringe upon that patent? Has anyone tried to copy?
Yeah, I'd actually, that's funny. I don't know if I told you this already in our other conversations we had before this, but yes, we recently did have someone try to knock off. I mean, they have knocked off the product. Now, what's funny about it is they're calling it a weighted cord holder, but it doesn't actually have any metal inside, so it's deceiving. There's no weight; it's just silicone. So, I actually, when I improved this product, we had some steel inside, and it was about, like, I think it was 86 grams. And so we increased the weight and did some other, design changes to make this a little grippier as well, where the pressure points are on the surface with this product. And then, we increased it to 105 grams. And so then this product that I see that popped up a couple of weeks ago doesn't have a weight at all. So I think it's like, 40 grams or 35 grams or something like that. So it's funny, they're calling it the same thing. So I think customers will figure out before too long that it's not the same. They're of course pricing it below my product, and we will eventually,
deal with it.
deal with it. But our intellectual property, sadly, is still pending. So we just got to wait till it gets approved, and then in another couple of weeks or months, whenever that happens, that we'll let them know. So they are infringing, but they're not officially infringing yet. So it's interesting. I'm not too worried about it though, because it's really funny. It's like I tell the students, don't be afraid because it's your idea. It's like people will never understand where the vision is supposed to go because they're not the one that had the idea. If you look at their pictures, I'm sure they'll figure this out before too long, so I don't mind talking about it. But if you look at the pictures they're using to try to sell that product, they don't even understand how it works. They're doing it wrong. They don't even show the best uses. The way that they do the one use they show is not the best way to do it. I mean, if you ask me, I'm the inventor of the product, so I think I would know. But, it's just funny. So I don't imagine they'll have very much success with it. But, I also think that if people aren't sort of copying you or knocking you off, then then you haven't had very much success, obviously. And so I think you had asked before about like role models and companies that have done the same thing. I mean, I think it's very important to identify like what company do you want to model yourself off of, because you can't take their IP, but you can model yourself off of their actions. You can, their actions are history, they're public. And so if you go look at a company or a similar product, like for me, it's pop sockets. I go look at what did pop sockets do and how did they do it? And how did they have success? How long did it take? What stages? Where did they get funding? How they're running their business? What other products have they launched, et cetera? What type of channels are they in? What have they done differently in those channels? All kinds of stuff. And I model my business off of that. And that's a very common tactic that many people use. And it's completely legal and morally, ethically fine. It's not, I'm not really competing with them either. So I'm sure they don't mind. I'd be honored if someone would model their business off of the way that I've done business someday if I've had enough success. So hopefully they're flattered, but I can't say.
I mean, this is just my opinion. I think you'd almost be a fool not to look at other businesses that have
Absolutely.
Already done stuff. And it's like, yes, I mean, and that's the thing that blows my mind. It's like, you don't necessarily even have to copy exactly what they do. You look at what they did and then say, all right, what would I do if I was in a similar scenario? Because I found that, like you said, especially if it's a similar industry, you'll find that a lot of the problems that they encounter are similar, so you could even avoid them prior to before they even happen, right? And
yeah, you got wisdom. That's what that's called, right? A smart man learns from his own mistakes. A wise man learns from others, right? I mean, this is why having an ideal is so important. Jordan Peterson talks about this all the time, right? It's important to have an ideal woman and an ideal man, because if you're a man or a woman, it's really important not to mix the two and not know what the traits and features are that make that, sex type and the person ideal in that vertical, right? Because there really is in the world of men, I'll speak for myself, an ideal man, right? Now, there's different types of that ideal man, and it's totally okay to not be perfect yourself. And we all know we have imperfections, but it is important to be able to aim at general qualities and values that make a man in our society, valuable to his fellows and to society as a whole. And so I think it's important to target what those are, because if you don't know what those are, or if it could just be anything, like, he talks about how do you play a game, right? The first thing you have to have is you have to have rules. You establish the rules. If you just say, let's play a game, people say, okay, what game? Okay, well, the game is defined by what the rules of the game are. What's the playing field? What's the time? What's the, parameters of how many players there are and how you negotiate the field or the objects of the game or whatever it might be. If you just say, let's play a game, what game? There's no definition to it. So you have to have rules, and you gotta, constraints are what make innovation possible. There has to be some limitation. I mean, you could even go so deep as to say that is really the purpose of life, is to see that when your life ends, because your life was limited, you had to do something with it. So what did you do? Right? That's what an omnipresent, immortal being does not have. They don't have limitation. So, because they never die, there's no urgency to do anything. But if you do have limitation, there certainly is. If you're going to pass away, it's like, okay, what am I going to do before my time is up? Well, that's my motivation to get out of bed in the morning, isn't it?
I've never thought of it like that. Limitation. Wow. Because I was going to add to what you said. When it comes to rules, I'll try and follow them. I'll admit sometimes I'm not the best. But when it comes to rules, I look at them like, all right, how can I I don't know what the right phrase for this is. It's like, okay, how can I bend them, right? How can I bend them just far enough where I don't break them, but I've bended them enough that, and yeah, I've never thought of it, that limits actually can enhance what we call life, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just listened to Elon's biography, and Walter Isaacson talks all about how Elon's number one rule, have you listened to it yet?
Yes, it's really well done.
His number one rule is that assume that regulations are stupid. Assume that every regulation is stupid.
No. I remember that now.
And that's exactly it too. Assume that the rules are wrong, and then go from there. So you can see what the rule is, but you got to figure out, why is that the rule? You got to ask questions. And so that's why I like the idea of your podcast, Intelligent Conversations, is let's figure out why this is the way that it is. Instead of just assuming that, oh, this is the way that it is for a reason, right? You want to bend the rule. You want to see, how far outside of this can we go? And I think we see that in society on a grand scale, especially these days, is you see the pendulum, if you will, swing a certain way, and then it hits a point where it causes some kind of reaction amongst the public, and the public then has that reaction, and it then swings back some depth the other, some amount towards the other direction. And then that other side has some sort of reaction, says, oh, that's too far. We've got to go back. And so then it kind of balances out. And, there you go.
Yeah. And we see that in society. And to add on to the Elon Musk quote, he's like, because when you were talking regulation, he would tell his employees, it was like, go find the person that wrote the rule. Not, don't tell me the rule. I know what the rule is. Go find the person that wrote the rule and ask them why they wrote it. And if it's a stupid reason, we're breaking it. Like, who cares?
Yeah, ask them what they used. What were their parameters? How did they think of it? What was the reason they came up with it, right? I mean, what is it based on? Understand from their perspective, where did this come from? Because you find that the purpose for the rules, they don't apply to every situation too. There's a lot of nuance to different situations. And so you don't want to limit the creators with, my personal opinion, the over excess of bureaucracy, because it stifles innovation. It prevents people from being able to do it in a cheap way that can then provide the consumer with something that's of value to them.
Exactly. If you want low prices, regulation, you have to also be aware, like sometimes it's good, right? Like we find that rule and it's phenomenal, right? It protects the public. It's great. And, but you also have to realize that there's always a cost, right? There's always a trade-off, and that it causes a barrier to entry, right? For example, I think not too many, I mean, this is a dumb example, but for example, I don't think too many people would be excited if like an oil company started drilling oil in your backyard, right? No one really wants that. However, if you start limiting, okay, this is the only land you can drill oil, all of a sudden it's like, wait, you start seeing prices rise. You see, like, right, it creates artificial demand because now you've shrunk the competition. And I don't know. I could be wrong though.
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, I could be wrong about everything, right? We could all be wrong about stuff, but I tend to agree. I think that I find myself agreeing more and more with the libertarian point of view, which is, as a business owner, I think that really has come to light for me, the last 4 years especially, and that's the reason for that is just kind of leave the government out of it for the most part. I mean, I think that people in general are good, and people, if they have the information, will make the right decisions. Now, people say, oh, well, corporations are corrupt. Well, the reason for that, as we have seen over the last couple of years, is because when government makes more rules, it creates a bigger barrier to entry for the little guy to compete against the big guy. And because there's all these rules and regulations, you have to abide by them, even if you're a very small independent business or you're just testing something or something like that. Even if you give warnings and whatnot about that, they still won't let you. So what it does is it actually creates incentive for the big companies to get bigger and then pay to create more laws with government to prevent other people from coming in to compete with them. So really what they need to do is actually need to take away laws, and in my opinion, and I could be wrong, right? But right. I think taking away some of these laws and regulations would actually be better than adding to them. And I think a lot of people generally agree. If you run a business, I think you struggle to find people who have run businesses who don't have this perspective, I think. And so I think that's telling, because you find that the government is really tough to deal with. They're slow. They don't have a motivation to respond to individual businesses. But there's no one that's going to take them out of their job besides the voters. And so then it's up to the individual business then to inform the voters of how things are working. Like, no, it's not possible. So I think that with the market should be able to choose. People should be able to choose, especially today with how easy it is to communicate problems with products, problems with businesses and how they operate, complaints that customers or employees might have. I mean, if you have a bad business that's doing business in a bad way, you can just go get a video of them and put it online. So, if someone's drilling oil and if a company's drilling oil in people's backyards, so you take your example, it wouldn't take very long on social media to expose that company, and so it would stop that from occurring because people wouldn't want to support a business that's doing, these unsavory things and damaging people's lives or private property or something like that. Right. So, just one example.
It's true, right? I mean, I think we share similar views on that point, right? Like, just I think people can govern themselves better than government can, right?
Generally speaking, I agree. Yeah, I think most people can handle themselves. Like you said, there's certainly situations, and you definitely get these psychopaths in society that will take advantage of everything, and don't have any morals whatsoever, don't seem to act like it, or will sweep it under the rug or pollute or, whatever. Maybe there's no one to see what they're doing that's wrong. So how will the public know? And then maybe the customer that they're buying from isn't the general public. So it's some other company that, doesn't really care about the environmental effects on one thing. So yeah, you could see that there could be problems with that, but
back to your point, it's almost impossible not for someone to record something like that going on today. It's really hard because now, just with almost everyone having a cell phone, it's like you have to go to great lengths to not be spotted on any camera.
In my opinion, like what makes the U.S. so unlikely to be unseated as the number one power in the world, despite a bunch of stumblings the last several years, is that the market for innovation here is fueled by the legal system, and the legal system protects intellectual property here, unlike anywhere in the world. And as a business owner, you can be pretty sure that when you make something and you go through all the appropriate channels, whether you're big or small, the legal system will protect you, and you will be able to get funding, and the people who fund you will be protected to invest in you, and cannot be threatened by whoever else, some company or government officials or something. So it gives the opportunity because people can reduce their risk of investment. If you invest in a company in another country that has a lot of corruption going on, it's a much riskier bet on if that company will be able to repay you. And the reason is because the legal system's corrupt, right? Because the police are corrupt, because the government is corrupt in a lot more ways. Now, it's not like we don't have problems here, but in general, the benefit of the great part of the United States is if a guy with no money has a problem, and the law is being some company is taking advantage of him, he can get representation, and he can bring it to court, and he can get his due, whatever it might be, protect his property, and protect his business. That's not the case in every country, and so I find it difficult to believe that we will, the United States will be unseated because of that particular aspect. It just makes it the best to start businesses here and to grow businesses here. And the businesses that grow here are the most valuable businesses in the world in general. There's a few, Saudi Aramco and, things like that are, very large businesses based in other countries. But in general, tech businesses and the companies that, hold a lot of the power and control and, financial capital of the world and the world's internet and communication stuff are, going to be based here, it seems like.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, the only way that would go away is if we decide ourselves, right?
It can definitely go away. We can choose to not let the market decide on stuff, but it does seem that the capitalist system is the best one, and allowing the market and the people to decide what gives them the best value instead of making the government enforce and tell the people what products are the ones that they're going to use, does seem to be allowing free choice, freedom of speech. It seems like that's the best option.
Agreed. Right. That I think most people share that to some extent.
So I don't know. You are seeing some people who don't particularly enjoy the capitalist system. You're seeing a lot of calls for communism these days, and I think that the further you are from history and bad things happening, the easier it is to forget. So I just encourage people to review history and what has happened in communist systems throughout world history.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't be afraid to read that stuff and realize like, oh shoot, like maybe it's not as great as it panned out to be. Well, Nick, I appreciate you coming on again and just sharing so much knowledge and wisdom. And I mean, it's great to hear that you're doing great. So if people want to, reach out to you, find you, buy the new Deskbrick, Cordbrick, could you just leave some information there real quick?
Absolutely. Cordbrick is available at cordbrick.com, and Deskbrick is there too. You can also just go to deskbrick.com. It forwards right to cordbrick.com.
Sweet.
I own that URL too. So, and then you can find us at Cordbrick, Cordbrick. And I'm Nick Barrett, the founder. So add me on LinkedIn if you want. And thanks for following us and listening.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Nick.
Thanks, Josh.
All right, everyone, as you can tell, that is Nick Barrett. He's a very intelligent person, has great things to share. I challenge you guys, if anything spoke to you, to reach out to him. Or if you're interested in getting a hold of a Cordbrick or Deskbrick, to check out his website. He gave you the information there. I know that this year's schedule has been off and on, but I do have a guest planned for you next week. And stay tuned till next week. We have a great guest lined up for you guys, and let's get after it. Hey everyone, if you liked this episode and would like to hear more, be sure to hit that subscribe or follow button.
We release a new episode every Wednesday for you guys to listen to. Thank you guys so much for the support that you give. We could not have done this without you guys. If you would like to be a potential guest on the show, check out intelligentconvos.com and fill out the form there. Thank you guys again, and let's get after it.